I'm just starting the recording now. Okay. Excellent. So the event is now recording, I believe. Okay, so your speaker today, some of you I'm sure will be extremely familiar with Kim, is Kim Morgan, and we're delighted that she's able to join us to share her time and experience and expertise with us. She's a very sought after conference speaker in normal times, and I believe has been extremely active over the last year or so in doing virtual events, speaking and training, which I expect many of you will have attended. She is also CEO of Barefoot Coaching, one of the UK's leading suppliers of coaching training. And as I mentioned previously, she's also now a best-selling coaching author and has written one book for us, and also the Coach's Casebook, which this is not just a sales plug, I promise. But if you would like an opportunity to buy the book, then there will be a promotion code at the end of the presentation, so do look out for that. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Kim, and I'm just going to stop sharing my slides and share some that Kim has provided. Wonderful. Can everybody see those? Yeah, thank you for the nodding heads. So I'm going to turn off my camera now and hand over to Kim, who will very ably take you through these. Thank you so much, everybody. Kim, you'll need to take yourself off mute, I think. You can't. Oh, that's not good. Okay, bear with me just a moment. Apologies, Kim, I will find the link in a moment. There we go. Would you try again now for me, please?
Okay, I'm in.
My apologies. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
I think you're happy with that. I'm so sorry.
I'm going to have to do that via the medium of mime or something for a moment. So hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I can see so many names that I recognize here and some names that I don't. So thanks for coming. Bryony has just introduced to me. I'm going to move straight on to tell you what I'm going to do today, which is, I think we've got about 30 to 40 minutes for me to talk about credibility, imposter syndrome, and the realities of self-employment. Wow. When I looked at that, I thought I'd been a bit overly ambitious. It sounds a bit like a mini MBA, actually. So just to manage your expectations, it will be necessarily a light touch, a dance in the moment on these topics. And actually my main focus will be on how to get credibility as a coach. Getting credibility as coach was actually the first chapter that I wrote. It's chapter 1 in the Coach's Survival Guide, because the issue of credibility for coaches has always intrigued me, and it's always been important to me too. Mainly because I started to train coaches when the industry was first emerging. And I've always wanted to be absolutely sure that I was training people to do something which would provide opportunities for work. And also that I was training coaches who were credible and prepared for that work, and that the industry that they were going into was credible too. And for that reason, I've really pioneered accreditation, professional and academic, for coaches, and I've really pioneered supervision too. So I started delivering coach training over 20 years ago, and we've now trained over 4,000 people, which is wonderful. They're all over the world. And over that time, because I've kind of slightly been, sounds grand CEO, but it's a small business. So I've kind of been the queen bee in my organization, and I've really followed people's progresses. I've seen so many people leave the cause, follow different paths, sometimes challenging paths towards being established and credible coaches. And whilst not everyone who trains with us sets up a coaching business, those who have embarked on this route, the majority of them have made it. So I just wanted to say that up front. Only a very small percentage have given up on self-employment, and that's usually simply because they haven't had the financial buffer to see them through the early days. So I've heard so many recurring questions and dilemmas over all the years from our alumni and from other coaches I meet. And they go like this: how will I be considered credible when I haven't done this before? I feel like such an imposter. And maybe I need to get a niche so that I can get noticed. And I wrote the book really to help new and newish coaches navigate a path through all those dilemmas and learn from people who'd gone before and succeeded. So 30 to 40 minutes to share some thoughts, ideas, reflections, opportunity for questions at the end. And I think I'm going to sneak in a couple of coaching questions in here for you to reflect on too. So could I have the next slide, please, Bryony? Thank you. So this old credibility question has always raised its head. 20 years ago, when the profession was relatively new, people came to our training course and said, there aren't many coaches, not many people know what coaching is. Is this the latest bag of stardust that's going to just disappear in a few years' time? Will anyone want it? Will anyone pay for it? And today people come and say, now coaching is really established. Now they say, oh, is the market saturated now? Everyone I know seems to be a coach. Is there room for one more? And I still don't quite know if this industry is going to survive. Of course, there have always been others who said 20 years ago, great, I'm in at the start of something and there's not much competition, so what an opportunity for me. And also today, people will say, great, this is an established industry recognized by organizations around the world and regulated and credentialed too. But the question of credibility lurks, and I've thought about it a lot. I've wondered, do newly trained doctors, lawyers, hairdressers feel like frauds and suffer from imposter syndrome when they first start out? Wonder about their credibility? Probably, yeah, I think they do, because imposter syndrome, as we know, is acknowledged to be triggered by starting something that you haven't ever done before, doing something for the first time, changing careers. But do doctors, lawyers, and hairdressers also worry if the market is already saturated? I don't think so. Do they wonder, can the world cope with another hairdresser or doctor? Or do they worry that their profession is going to fizzle out? Probably not. Do they worry that people won't understand what they do or how they will be able to describe their services? I cut hair. I look after you when you need medical help. I support you when you have legal issues. I'm a coach. So what do you say next? First reflection for you is, how do you describe your offer or services? just being slightly put on the spot by me asking that question here today, notice how you feel. Notice how easily this comes to you. And if something doesn't trip off the tongue comfortably, just reflect on why that may be and what would need to be true for that to come more easily. Can I have the next slide, please, Bryony? I really do feel like I'm on one of those government COVID briefings when they ask for the slides all the time. Okay, so, oh, someone's just written, yes, JVT, exactly, John McNestry, thank you. So, like I said, I've thought a lot about it, and I want to give you my thoughts about why there is a particular, where have we gone now? I think you were on the right slide before, Bryony. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a very unique and particular set of circumstances which can surround becoming a coach. I'm just going to talk you through some of them. First of all, goes without saying, you're learning a new skill set. Maybe returning to education after many years and with all the sort of potential insecurities that can come from that. And then not only are you learning new skills, techniques and theories, but you find you actually have to practice them in front of other people and get feedback on how well you perform. And while you're doing all that, you're also being coached, thinking about yourself, examining your beliefs, your psychology. It's often life-changing, exhilarating, and exhausting all at the same time. And also, perhaps it's very drastically different from what you did before. In the coach training room, when you ask a question, the answer is often, it depends. And for the first time, you find yourself stepping into a new environment where there isn't a clear answer to this. Probably the most extreme example we have that is that we are registered training providers for LCAS, which provides learning for ex-military personnel when they leave the services. And I don't think they ever heard it depends before when they've been working in sort of combat situations. So what comes with that is the realization, the dawning realization that being a coach is actually about uncertainty, about staying with the not knowing and respecting the wonder and mystery of another human being. And there isn't necessarily an easy way to measure it. You know, for years, we've sought for that magic ingredient for return on investment for coaching. And no one's quite got it yet. And there's a reason why. There is no killer question. Uncertainty, questioning, and doubt go with the territory of being a coach. And coaches sign up to the notion of not being the expert and yet then berate themselves for not being an expert. You're also entering a completely new industry with new terminology, new codes of practice, new behaviours. Often people becoming coaches or returning are either returning to work after a career break or another significant moment of transition in their lives. It might be that you've burned out. It might be that you've just damn well had enough of the corporate world. It might be that you've been made redundant, but quite often there are some difficult endings that precipitate people deciding, I want to be a coach. So you come already with some history. Then there's the potential financial pressure to earn. Everything's riding on this. There might be other people in your life who think you're mad to have walked away from that great job at Lloyd's Bank or wherever it was. The industry's still relatively new, not fully understood. There's far less comments about tree hugging than there used to be, but there's still a little sniff of skepticism around sometimes. And I don't think it exists around hairdressers or doctors, maybe lawyers to an extent. Then there's something else that I think is really significant, and that is that unless you are already self-employed, a self-employed consultant who's decided to add coaching to your existing skill set, or you're being sponsored by your organization so that you're going back in to become an in-house coach, training as a coach almost certainly requires you to become self-employed. And if you become a hairdresser, lawyer, or doctor, you have opportunities for employment. But there are few employed roles as a coach. It's easy to also underestimate the complexities of running a business. And, I haven't got time today to talk about that, but in the book that we're referring to today, there's quite a lot about the complexities of running a business too. There's a kind of post-course euphoria sometimes as well, a bit of a reality crash, because on the course you've coached yourself silly in your groups and you love coaching and you know this is what you want to do. But then you find it's not as easy to find people who are willing to pay for coaching as you thought. And then when you do start going and pitching or having chemistry meetings, there's the additional realization that you are the product. And this is about you being chosen by clients in chemistry meetings or beauty parades, as they're sometimes called. And having gone through all this, you have to then get used to people saying no to you. You get used to rejection, which feels personal. So I don't want you to feel depressed. I really don't. So I want you to feel like, blooming hell, good on me for doing this, and celebrate your courage at having made this leap into a new career, and one which you love and one which you know will make a difference in the world. And I want to say again, I have never been about putting bums on seats. I would absolutely not keep training coaches if they didn't succeed. And from our alumni, I could write volumes of books on their business successes. And it gives me huge pride and pleasure to see that they have succeeded. And it also gives me huge pride and pleasure to sorry, I got distracted by OL9, people from a course that finished yesterday. Also gives me huge pride and pleasure to know how many people's lives they are changing. So could I have the next slide, please, Bryony? The question, credible in whose eyes? Important question, because, I suppose I'm going to approach the credibility issue like a true coach, at a surface level, focusing on the practical steps, the external factors that you need to think about, and equally the work you need to do on yourselves about your own internal reference system. So I want to ask you a question. And you can write down your answer, or you can just think your answer, but don't overthink it. This has to be quite intuitive. How do you know if you've done a good job? How do you know if you've done a good job? Okay. So I'm guessing that you said one of these three things. Something like, I just know. I can tell, I feel it. They're coming in, lovely, thank you, I'm seeing them. Or I get feedback, other people tell me, I get great evaluations, it just feels right as another one. I get recommended, great. And some people say, I feel it, and also other people say, there's loads about getting the coach buzz and feeling it, I love it. Well, this is a great question, and I wanted to share it with you today. It's the work of Shelley Rose Charvet, who some of you will know, a great NLP author and trainer, and her book, Words That Change Minds. And she coined the terms internal and external reference system. If you have a really strong internal reference system, you just know that you've done a good job. But sometimes you know that even when you haven't. So, for example, someone with a really strong internal reference system would deliver a training course. They would get 50 evaluations at the end, all of which said, this is absolutely terrible. It wasn't what I was expecting. Someone with a massively strong internal reference system would go, yeah, well, I thought it was great. They were wrong. Somebody with a really, really strong external reference system might get 50 evaluations that said best course I've ever been, 49 that said best course I've ever been on, and one that said not quite what I was looking for, and would then feel absolutely mortified. And go home and think, I can never do this again. I can never show my face as a trainer again. So it's important for you to know how you determine how credible you are, how competent you are, and think about using both measures. Both measures are good. It's also a really good idea for you to set some benchmarks using both measures. So how will I, or how do I know I have credibility as a coach? And how will others know, or how do others know that I'm credible as a coach? Because by doing that, it will, like all coaching, allow you to check yourself against them. It will prevent you from striving and never arriving at a destination that you haven't determined. Could I have the next slide, please, Bryony? Thank you. So let's look at self. How do you get credibility for yourself? Well, first and foremost, basically this is about, the big answer to this is just keep working on yourselves. Make your own development at the heart of your coaching practice. That means supervision, coaching, self-care, time to think, journaling, reflective practice. You are one of the primary instruments of change in the coaching relationship. Forget the tools and techniques. There are decades of research on the therapeutic industry that say what matters most is how the therapist makes someone feel. It's exactly the same with coaching. Your own development is integral to your credibility on another level too. You should be able to answer the question that your client asks you, so who coaches you then? And if you can't answer that question, how much are you manifesting what you want your client to be? I have a quote that I really like, and I think Christine's going to share it in chat. It comes from organizational consulting, from someone called Nevis, and he took a Gestalt approach to this. But he said the theories and practices believed to be essential to bring about change are manifested, symbolized, or implied in the presence of the consultant or lead coach for that. So, you sign up when you become a coach to continuing to do the work on yourself. Also, please acknowledge the benefits of the beginner's mindset when you're early on. Honestly, it's a beautiful stage, a stage of childlike curiosity and wonder and not knowing. Treasure it, because later you may fight to retain it. I know that after 30 years, I think I've seen it all sometimes, and long for the days when I was in awe of everything that happened. I've got another quote here that Christine's going to put in the chat from Patrick Casement, again from therapy, because that's still where a lot of our reference points come from. When a therapist thinks he can see signs of what's familiar to him, he can become blind to what's different and strange. Also, work on yourself by reevaluating how you define your self-worth and your identity. And I did a podcast recently with a wonderful psychologist called John Perry, who had some real wisdom about how you focus more on your self-worth and your self-esteem. It's a subtle difference, but what doesn't determine your self-worth is money, job status, how many social media followers you've got, your achievements. Self-worth is about saying, I'm more than all those things. I'm worthwhile, valuable, and lovable. And I'll put some resources at the end that I think would be interesting to you around that difference. Also, I wanted to share with you on similar lines, and I quote the ICF put out this week: don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. And I want to say along with that, don't assume because someone's been coaching longer than you, they are better than you. I really, yeah, John Perry does rock, Sam, yeah. I really think that some of the best coaches are the ones who are just coming out of the training courses. The other thing to do is ensure that you integrate all your previous life and work experiences into what you're doing now. See your work life as a continuum. Don't leave at the door of the coach training room or at the start of your business everything that you've done before behind you. Okay, next slide, please, Bryony. Thank you. So how do you get credibility in the eyes of others? Well, really think about professionalizing your approach. There is more competition now. That is a reality. Immerse yourself in the industry. Read. Sign up to the global coaching surveys. If you don't already, we haven't put it in the resources, but we're happy to send you links to all the 3 or 4 that we subscribe to. Keep your finger on the pulse of this industry. Keep your accreditation up to date. Practice, join coaching circles, join boards of coaching bodies. Develop materials, processes, profiles. And yeah, Tim, hi, I love that Suzuki quote. Thank you for sharing it. Develop the clarity of your offer and your approach. Be memorable somehow. Be memorable for you being boundaried and passionate about what you do and taking it really seriously. Get supervised. Always create a safe container for you and your clients to do the work. I know you know this. I know we teach it, but I honestly don't see it enough. Really respect the contract. It makes all the difference. Polish up your chemistry meeting approach. This is a harsh reality. People who do chemistry meetings well get chosen more at chemistry meetings. That it kind of brings into question the whole notion of, is this about, oh, do I get on with this person? I have associates in my business who always win a chemistry meeting. So chemistry meetings are important. Don't save your best until you've won the client. bring your best to the chemistry meeting, and don't talk about yourself and all your qualifications and how long it took you to get there. We've got a few more harsh realities coming up. One harsh reality is that CEOs want to be coached by CEOs. People working in media or television want their coach to have had some experience of TV or media, etc. When you're first starting out, go where you already have credibility and coach in sectors where you've worked or where you're known. Over time, you will transgress that, if that's the right word, when you become known for just being a damn good coach. But initially, your best place to start is where you've worked before. And I know some people resist that because they just haven't been able to wait to get away from their previous sector. But it is where you're likely to get the most leverage for work. To achieve credibility as a coach, consider developing some form of thought leadership, expertise that you can demonstrate. But I would say let that find you. Don't go looking for it. Don't go looking for a niche in areas of expertise in which you have no track record. There are people in our network who've created some wonderful niche offerings. Grief, loss, divorce coaching, working with quiet people, working with expats, coaching surrogate parents, adoptive parents, working with neurodiversity. But you need to have experience of coaching a lot of people in these circumstances or have personal experience of it yourself. And your life and work story may dictate this. One of my, the people that I trained, Lorna Davis, who's an amazing woman and coach, talks about find that place where your heart breaks. Another harsh reality, Harvey Coleman's research from the book The Organizational Game Revealed. Again, it appears in the Coach's Survival Guide. He determines that people get promoted, recognized for different factors, and they are their performance, their image, and how many people know about them, how much they put their head above the parapet. And he determined that the proportions were that the biggest factor was how many people know about you, your exposure. The next one was image, 30%. And last of all, 10%, how good a job you do. And that's assuming that we're all doing, a pretty good job. There's a pretty level playing field. It's so true. I can't say it enough. I really can't say it enough. Of those 4,000 people we've trained, about 150 of them work for us on an associate basis. I think every single one stood up in front of me time and time again and said, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And I wonder sometimes about the other 3,800 and however many, I'm not good at maths, but I wonder who else is in there that didn't dare to say, hey, do you know who I am and what I do? And then you can develop credibility too by association. That can be by writing blogs, for example, but if you're going to do it, please make it worth your while and ensure that who you're writing for has a high circulation, high audience, because otherwise you'll put your heart and soul into writing a blog and it won't get seen by anybody. So really think smart about this. The other thing that I wanted to mention was being an associate coach. Like I said right at the beginning, there are not many opportunities for employment as coaches. Working as an associate for larger coaching companies is an option, but again, it's very competitive. There aren't that many large coaching companies around. And in order to get in, you have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to have your credentials in place, you have to have your supervision, your insurance, and in some cases, you have to bring a little black book of contacts too. There's quite a lot about that in the book. And I've had a 5-minute warning. So one thing that I was going to say was be prepared to invest financially. And although Jenny Rogers, the guest editor of this book, and I had a bit of an argument about this, she let me put it in the end. I said, if you can possibly afford it, I think in order to enhance your credibility, it is worth you investing in some PR in the short term. Don't employ somebody, but short-term PR consultant. I'm really speaking quickly now, Bryony. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is thanks to Julie Starr, another great coach who showed this at our conference, and I just loved it. Just a reminder that we all have this stuff going on in our heads, but hopefully you've worked on your stuff more than your client has. A reminder that the properly rounded coach is uncertain, scared sometimes, but they've faced into those things, and they face into those things constantly in their supervision and have come to integrate them into their coaching. Another quote from another psychotherapist I like, called Wilfred Bion, always said, there are 2 people in every therapist's room. It's just that one is more scared than the other. And hopefully that one is the client and not the coach. Next slide. Thank you, Bryony. Again, something else that came from another wonderful coach called Claire Bres. Some of you will know. I shared this in a supervision session recently, and it's just beautiful advice. Throw away your baggage and go forward. Don't wait until you feel absolutely ready. Hold it all lightly. Use ease, not urgency, and the lightest of touches. Yeah, we have to trust the process, and we have to trust our clients. And taking this to an absolute extreme, there was one of my coaches once who fell asleep for probably about 10 minutes in the middle of a coaching session. And when she jolted awake, the client was still talking and hadn't even noticed. So tell yourself regularly you're a worthwhile human being with a good intention, and you're doing your best, and you care, and that's enough. So let's have the last slide. Thank you, Bryony. I think it's the last slide. Final question for you. What shifted in this canter through credibility, imposter syndrome, and realities of starting a business? You might want to make a note, take a minute, consider your responses. What might you do differently? Thank you. That went quickly. It was nice to see so many familiar names.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for such an excellent presentation. I'm really excited to ask some of the questions that have been coming in where you've been talking. I think there's a really good range of sort of responses to what you've brought up so far. So yeah, shall I get started, or do you want to?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So the first question that's come in, which is definitely very relevant to your discussion about credibility at the start, which body do you feel is the most credible, EMCC, ICF or AOC? What do you feel about that?
So I don't totally understand the question. I think they're all credible. That's my answer. I wouldn't like to rate them in terms of credibility. I think they are different. And as you know, we are linked to the ICF. And the main reason that I chose to work with the ICF was because they were globally recognised, and we have a lot of people from overseas doing our courses. They also, their approach probably chimed more with ours in terms of them being less research-based, slightly less academic than the EMCC. As you can tell from my presentation, but I hold the EMCC in really high regard, and but they're European based, and the Association for Coaching is UK wide, and I hold them in really high regard too, and they offer great sort of coaching circles around the country. So I think it's about, obviously it will be partly determined by which accreditation your course provider has gone with. But otherwise, just see which one kind of chimes with you, which one works for your work.
A personal choice.
But I would say they are all doing a tremendous job in regulating and growing the credibility of this industry.
Great. So another question that's come in from Elizabeth Goodman. She said that it would be great to hear a bit more about the difference between self-worth and self-esteem.
Thank you. It's a really, really big question, and it's a difficult question to answer at this stage. What I would prefer to do, because I knew that would come up, and that could be a whole new webinar, is refer you to the resources that I put at the end of this. So the work of William Glasser, Viktor Frankl's work, which talk about really a fundamental belief in yourself as a human being, and not attaching your worth, your esteem, your identity to your relationship status, your work status, because if you do that, those things can go. All of those things can go. But what can never go is a fundamental belief in yourself as a good human being, and some great coaching can help you with that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to confirm, we'll be sharing the slides afterwards, so these references will definitely be available. So another question is, are there sort of 3 things that you think that people are looking for in a coach, assuming that they might not know about as much about coaching as the coaches do? Are there particularly things that you think that coaches should stress when they're meeting with clients for the first time or promoting themselves?
That's a great question, and anyone else, feel free to put your answers in, because I think it would be really interesting to see what other people think. I think now people are looking for credentials. Time was they weren't, but I think definitely if you don't have an accreditation, get one. There are ways of getting it, through sort of pathways. I think people are looking to feel safe with you, that you are comfortable in your skin, and that's really what we've been talking about here today. You're not showing off, you're not trying to prove anything. You feel they feel that they can trust you and go wherever they want with you. And I think initially they're looking for, I've already said, assuming we've got past the stage of they're looking for someone who's worked in television or been a CEO. I think they're looking to be able to trust you implicitly.
As you said, you need to be able to answer the question about who's coaching you and sort of show them that you've done the work yourself and you're continuing to do that work.
Yeah.
So another question is, I think this goes back to the point that you said about maybe it's not as often addressed, but what kind of PR would you advise we invest in? Louise Van Haas asks, she said, if it's remotely fair to ask.
Okay, so it's not exactly advice. And again, Jenny Rogers really didn't want me to put this in the book, but actually I did it. I did it myself early on in my career, and I just got a local PR person who I engaged for a few months, and so what she did was get me on local radio. She got me writing in local papers. You can get PR people to work with you on a national basis, but I was looking on a regional basis. It was, you know, a few £1,000s, but it really jumped me up to have credibility in other people's eyes. And sadly, that 60-30-10 equation is still true. You know, if people see your name in the paper, they will give you credibility whether you're a good writer or not, or whether you're a good coach or not. So it's that type of PR that I was thinking about.
Yeah, sort of ongoing visibility and getting yourself out there.
Yeah, yes, Ellie.
Yeah, and so this links to another question we've got here from Lynn Tapper. She said, any tips on reaching out to new markets that might not have as much understanding about what coaching is? For example, parents thinking about coaching as remedial rather than a vehicle for reaching potential to parent brilliantly.
Yeah, actually, that's something that we do. We have, and there are some people here who have trained with us. We train people to provide coaching skills for parents, and we have just come at it, you know, we come at it knowing that it can be considered a remedial thing. You know, you're not being a good enough parent, but actually we've come at it from the perspective of, yeah, my goodness, you didn't get a manual when you had this baby, and yeah, there was no book to go with this, and actually this is coaching. This is a very positive approach. It's not looking at what's wrong, it's just looking at what's right. So yeah, I think you need to be creative. You need to find a model of your own that you can share with people if you're trying to break into a new market.
Yeah, letting them see it through the same framing that you see it, and yeah, the positive. And so another question we've got here is, it can often be challenging to begin a coaching relationship with a client who's never been coached before. So they might be aware of coaching, but they might not have had that experience. And so they might not fully understand the ins and outs of coaching. How can you be clear about what it involves and what they can expect? So you're not sort of over-promising or making sure those guidelines are clear.
Okay, so a few answers to that. I think any coach should have some kind of ability to describe quite quickly what it's like to be in a coaching relationship. I sometimes have said in the past that I'm a bit like a self-help book come to life. But all those self-help books that you ever bought and read them and went, yeah, that makes sense, and never did anything with them, and they're all now on your shelf. Actually, now working with me, we will go through those same sorts of thought processes and exercises together, but I will be holding up the mirror to you, challenging you, championing you, and holding you to account on a regular basis. So first of all, find your own way of saying it, but also now there are a lot, you know, maybe make your own videos and send those to prospective clients as well, or suggest coaching books simple coaching books that they could read. There are some lovely short little books, like The Tao of Coaching is one that I really like, that's really accessible, that give you an insight. And also, if I'm allowed to say, the first book that I wrote, the Coach's Casebook, really does like open the door on what happens in a coaching room. So that's a good thing as well to share with people.
Yeah, I think that's a good range of tips. Okay, so we've got time for one more question. So I'll just ask a quick one here. So Karen Stevens asks, if she's starting her business, should she offer special lower rates to get started and help to get the word out, or should she just sort of have standard rates right from the start?
That's a really good question. My intuitive response to that is, what message are you giving yourself if you start off with lower rates? Are you starting off not valuing yourself? It has to be, and if it is a low, is it lower compared to what you'd really like to charge? So if it's lower compared with what you'd really like to charge what you'd really like to charge. If it's a realistic rate for you that you will feel comfortable with, that's fine. But really examine what's going on that's making you want to do that, and what will be the impact on you, and how will you claw yourself out of it if you set out too low.
Yeah,
the thing that I remember is that I had a coach once who really was amazing and undervalued themselves in terms of pricing, like to a ridiculous extent. And once worked with somebody for one session and did something utterly transformational that was really significant in their lives. And the coach charged like 30 quid or something. And then this person wrote to me and said, and I've now started to doubt that person's capability. I've wondered if this change will last, because they only charge £30. They actually said, you know, what this has done for me, I would have remortgaged my house for. So always remember the value that coaching can bring. Always remember what it's done for you, how much it's changed you, all of you here, the names that I see and recognise who have told me that the course has changed your lives. You know, you remember what that felt like and consider then what others would pay.
And I think that's a really nice note to end on, sort of making sure that you value yourself at the right amount and don't underestimate your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you, Kim, for that most inspiring talk. I'm sure people will have found that incredibly useful. And thank you, Laura, also for keeping an eye on the chat box for us. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. As we mentioned earlier, this event has been recorded and the recording will be shared. And if you would like the slides, then do let me know, and I'm very happy to share those. There's some contact details on screen there for Kim. If you'd like to keep in touch, then I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. If you're not already in touch, that is. And also, I'd like to let you know that her book, the Coach's Survival Guide, is available through our website at the moment with 20% discount. When you finish the webinar, you should be taken to a page where you can purchase the book if you'd like to get hold of a copy. I'm sure you will find it extremely helpful. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Do feel free to share the recording with anybody who wasn't able to make it, and I hope you'll be able to join us again. We have several more coaching webinars planned over the next few months, so we would love to see you again. Thank you once again, Kim, for your time.
Thank you all. Thanks for hosting this.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Right,
and thank you, everyone. I'm seeing lots of lovely thanks and lots of familiar names. Thank you.
Thank you.